Feeding a hungry world is a big job, but it all starts with one plant. Basic biology tells us that from seed to harvest, it'll need carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, all plentiful in the air and water. But it also needs vital macronutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Vital to the plant, but often not plentiful enough in the soil. And in the case of phosphorus, plants depend on this element to create energy and grow. This is where CF Industries and Phosphate, one of Central Florida's largest natural resources, enters the picture. CF Industries is one of the world's largest manufacturers and distributors of phosphate fertilizers, providing essential nutrients to increase the yield and quality of our nation's and the world's crops.
CF is a high-technology company. This is a state-of-the-art facility, and we could produce roughly 20% of the phosphate fertilizers for the United States. That's important for feeding the world.
CF Industries started as the Central Farmers Fertilizer Company, a farmers' cooperative. Their goal was to find a reliable source of fertilizer for their crops. Eventually, the farmers recognized that producing their own fertilizers was the best way to serve its members and ensure quality. That commitment to producing high-quality domestic fertilizer brought us here to Central Florida, home of one of the world's richest deposits of phosphate rock. From mine to port to farm, and ultimately your dinner table, the process of leveraging this essential element is complex. It begins at CF Industries' phosphate mine in Hardee County. Hidden below the surface are huge reserves of phosphate. The challenge is getting it out of the ground. But for CF Industries, the solution comes in a very big way. This is the Bucyrus Erie 1370 dragline. This amazing machine weighs more than 7 million pounds and can carve out over 75,000 tons of rock a day. But before the job can begin, our people first have to get it into position. This mammoth machine is equipped with 2 giant mechanical feet that allow it to move. Once it's in place, it's time to begin. The enormous bucket does the heavy lifting. It's big enough to hold a car, weighs 110,000 pounds, and is secured by 3-inch thick steel cables. With a touch of the controls, a CF Industries operator can dig up over 140,000 pounds of a mixture called matrix, which consists of sand, clay, and phosphate.
On the right side, I have a hoist. On the left side, I have a drag. The drag is the one that brings it in at the bottom, hoist up and down. My left to right are on my feet. Running this piece of equipment is exciting. It's fun. A regular pickup truck would probably hold about 2 yards of topsoil. This takes out about 55 yards at one time. You could fit a couple of vehicles in there if you wanted.
This matrix is transported by bucket into a pit car station, where it is hydroblasted with 10,000 gallons of recycled water per minute into a slurry consistency. Using a control panel that resembles a gaming station, workers use high-pressure water hoses to blast the rocky matrix. It's almost like a grown-up video game. The computer system monitors everything on the screen, allowing operators to control pumping systems via high-technology touchscreens. The pit car creates a rock milkshake-like consistency of materials, or slurry, that can be pumped miles away to the beneficiation plant. Each year, 18 million tons of slurry is pumped from pit to plant, but on average, only a quarter of this mixture is the phosphate. To separate the slurry, the mixture reports to the washer, where it is sized, screened, and put into log washers, which beat up the chunks of matrix to free the phosphate. A hydrosizer and more screening neatly separates out a pebble-sized phosphate product, leaving a mixture of sand and phosphate of the same size, which is then fed to flotation cells, These are basically oversized washing machines, and they use turbulent water, reagents, and air bubbles to separate the precious phosphate from the sand. After being separated, the phosphate rock is then loaded into rail cars for a 50-mile journey to CF Industries' Plant City Fertilizer Manufacturing Complex. At the same time, the sand and clay are pumped back to the mined area to help prepare the site for complex, high-quality land reclamation.
Once we get finished mining, the property out here will be turned back into what it was before we started. And it's really remarkable what the company does in reclamation.
Reclamation is the final step in the mining process. We've come in, mined the area, reclaimed the area, and really restored the land back to its natural state.
CF's reclamation area showcases the magic of science and Mother Nature as plants, birds, and other wildlife reestablish a thriving presence and functional habitats.
I've been working for CF on this ground for 30 years. I helped mine the area that we're now standing on. I know what it looked like before we mined it, which personally believe that it looks better than it did before we mined it.
Reclamation is highly regulated, from federal agencies like the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers to state and local governments. Many organizations help to certify a quality and timely reclamation process. But right now, let's catch up to the phosphate rock that is taking a 50-mile trip down the railroad to CF Industries' chemical plant in Plant City. Covering about 100 acres, the CF Industries fertilizer manufacturing plant employs more than 450 people and operates 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
This is one of the larger phosphate complexes in the industry. We have 4 sulfuric acid plants, 4 granulation plants, 2 storage buildings, and 2 phosphoric acid plants.
Railroad cars haul around 10,000 tons of phosphate rock a day. The cars empty the rock into underground conveyors. It passes through a tunnel and is sent upwards to be stockpiled into different areas according to size and quality. Now it's time to proceed to one of the most complex parts of the operation, turning these piles of dirt into phosphate fertilizer. The way CF accomplishes this is to use one of the most corrosive chemicals there is, sulfuric acid. We not only buy it, but we make it as well, producing up to 8,000 tons of it per day here on site. Raw liquid molten sulfur is trucked in and siphoned into tanks, then burned at more than 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The resulting gas is hydrated and condensed to form liquid sulfuric acid and stored in these huge tanks. Meanwhile, the phosphate rock is crushed into a fine powder in a ball mill so it will react more easily. The ground rock is then mixed with the sulfuric acid. The phosphate in the rock reacts, producing phosphoric acid and a phosphogypsum byproduct. A giant rotating filter then separates the acid from the phosphogypsum. The resulting phosphoric acid is concentrated to a higher strength and combined with anhydrous ammonia. When mixed with ammonia, the phosphoric acid produces granules of diammonium phosphate, DAP, or monoammonium phosphate, MAP, 2 important fertilizers. Our food supply depends on this important nutrient, and Central Florida produces about 75% of the phosphate fertilizer used in the United States, and about 1/3 of the phosphate fertilizer used throughout the world. Each year, CF Industries manufactures around 1.5 million tons of DAP, about 450,000 tons of MAP, and other specialized fertilizer products based upon market demand. The fertilizer is then shipped to CF Industries' Tampa Port facility and loaded on ships and barges.
The purpose of this whole installation is to receive the dry product from Plant City. We store it and then we load it onto domestic and foreign vessels. I have control over all the conveyor belt systems here. We get the maximum amount of product into the hole. And the only way we can do that is by using this unique facility here, whereby we can actually move the vessel, stop it, start it at any time we want.
From here, it will travel through the Gulf of Mexico and up the Mississippi River to be used by Midwestern farmers and throughout America's heartland. CF also supplies high-quality fertilizer to partners around the world. Helping to feed the world's population of over 7 billion people is an awesome and important task, which CF Industries undertakes with care. From the highest standards of safety for our more than 700 Florida employees, to the ways we protect the earth that has given us this precious resource, CF Industries is committed to our community and the environment. CF Industries, fueling Florida's economy, feeding the world.